between the ages of 13 and 18. But I said right from the very beginning, right from when I was interviewed here with Pastor Cindy and Pastor Rory, that the boundary of youth ministry in my mind, it certainly includes the youth of this church. It includes their siblings, younger and older. It includes their parents. It includes their grandparents. It includes their friends that might not come to Advent or, God forbid, might not even be religious. It actually includes this great swath of people. And it's, I know, very rewarding for me to kind of look out now and see the fruits of a ministry that for some people that are merely 13 up to some people that are as old as Barry. And, I mean, you have to know Barry, but he's very old. But anyway, you see, like, you know, generations of people here. And, yeah, well-aged. It's, again, it's sort of the you know, it's the legacy of love's labor. So, again, thank you for those of you coming to endure the weather. So, how do we become the community that we aspire to be here at Advent, or in fact, in all churches? If you're to write a general rule for this community, this church, what would it be? Should it be that you should show up at least, you know, once a month? Give 10% to the church. Just simply be nice to each other. Wear good clothes. What would a good general rule be? Now, as it turns out, being Methodists, we have been very methodical about what this general rule should be. And it is codified in a little book that we like to call the Book of Discipline. Only we like to call it that, most other people don't. But the Book of Discipline, and it outlines our theology and how we're to live as a community into our theology. Now, paragraph 104, it actually talks about a time in the 18th century when people earnestly striving for their salvation sat down and came up with these 3 simple rules. Rules that are simple to understand and yet remarkably difficult sometimes, it seems, to do. Now, at ordination, we are actually asked if we shall follow these rules. We are asked if we will teach these rules. And then, in front of the masses, the bishop tends to surprise us right at that moment and ask what they are. And even though I've seen this again and again, I've been to many annual conferences, and I've seen this again and again, I couldn't help but be surprised myself when I was asked over Zoom what they were. And thankfully, we had enough presence of mind to stumble out, do no harm, do good, and stay in love with God, which in 18th century language is attend upon all ordinance of God. And with God's help, I do try to follow them. And as much as possible, I do teach them, not just to the confirmands, not just to youth. My task today is to talk to you about do no harm. Next week, Pastor Cindy will talk to do good. And the week following, Eric will talk to stay in love with God, but I'm sure he's going to use the 18th century version of it. He probably won't, and that's fine. Now, these rules are in a specific order. Some people will say that do good should be first, but do good isn't doing first. Wisely, do no harm is first. And I think after some reflection, you might actually see the wisdom in that. In our scripture today, Paul is talking to a congregation in Rome, and he gives us some fairly standard ways to do no harm. Quoting from his Hebrew scriptures, his Hebrew roots, he draws from the last half of the 10 Commandments. Don't commit adultery, don't murder, don't steal, don't desire what other people have. And then, like Jesus before, he makes the claim that all this can be summed up by loving your neighbor as yourself, a verse that he and Jesus before him pulls from Leviticus. Now, by the way, when you read your Bible, I would strongly recommend that you look at those little footnotes that litter the bottom of the page, because you'll get much more depth in your study, and maybe even, I would say it goes a long way to staying in love with God. When we look at this verse from Leviticus about loving your neighbor as yourself, it's not quite as complete in Rome as it's presented in Leviticus. The verse actually reads, "You must not take revenge, nor hold a grudge against any of your people. Instead, you must love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." Note the addition about not taking revenge or holding a grudge, and then think about our age and our age in social media. Friends, we are in an epic battle. And I'm just tired, grieved, and anxious. And like in the days of Paul, it seems we aren't fighting against human enemies, but against rulers, authorities, forces of cosmic darkness, and spiritual powers of evil in the heavens. We are fighting for our very souls, and in some cases for our very lives, against algorithms. Now, if you get nothing else from my message today, please, please, please watch a documentary called The Social Dilemma, which unfortunately is only available on Netflix. In this film, past executives from Facebook, Instagram, Google, Twitter, Snapchat, YouTube, they all go on and talk about what is going on in social media. And in many cases, how much of what they created to bring about good in the world grew into a life of its own. In the past, we created products or services that we sold. Now on social media, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. With our free Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Google, YouTube accounts, and whatever else we have, we tend to think that we're the customers, but we're not. The advertisers are. And what these accounts are trying to find out is how much of our lives we are willing to give to them. These algorithms, these little programs, are busy cataloging our behavior and vying for our attention. These algorithms were created with three main goals in mind, and not one of these goals was designed to make us better people. The first goal is to increase our engagement on the platform. That whole clicking like or so-and-so shared a picture of you, so you go in and look at the picture. The second goal is to increase growth in the platform. Get a friend to come in and join your particular group. Cross-tag, go from Facebook to Twitter and back again. And all this is to increase the amount of time that you are likely going to be looking at an advertisement. Now, I used to think that social media is our data. It's our data being sold. That's what I used to think. But it's not the data. It's the model of being that is being sold. The model that they are creating the data. And this is the model that they will use to predict the products that I would likely buy. Now let me explain model for a moment with sort of an example from my life. In 2004, I started working from home. And I got onto this free application called Pandora. It was one of the first free music applications. What it would do is it would ask you up front, what kind of music do you like? It would then play you that music, and then start to play you songs that it thought you might actually like based on what other people like. So for example, when I got on it, I of course chose Journey, because why wouldn't you? So I chose Journey, and it would start playing me songs effectively right out of Journey's greatest hits. But then eventually it started playing me songs from the Eagles. I didn't ask for the Eagles. How did it get that? Well, what happened was that it knew, Pandora, that people that like Journey also tended to like the Eagles. And so what it did is it would prompt me, do you like the song? Do you not like the song? And then I would click, in this case, I like the song. And what I've just done now is I've improved the model of myself for Pandora. And so later on, Pandora would start making other suggestions, like maybe a song from Toto or Dire Straits. I didn't like the Toto, but songs from Toto or Dire Straits. And I asked them why I like that. And with every click, I created for them a model of who I was, and the suggestions got better and better. And I love this. I love this. And Pandora loved it too, because as they created their model, they started to get better and better at suggesting advertisements that I would actually like. If this happened today, I would think that advertisements for AARP, retirement firms, and knee replacements would likely be popping up with greater and greater frequency, whereas advertisements for Valley Fair, Bose headsets, First Avenue tickets, or perhaps even very expensive sneakers, they would drop. This is called surveillance capitalism. And it's a new frontier in capitalism. No longer are we as interested in pork futures or tech futures. There is now a hunger for human futures. Now, honestly, nothing really has changed with advertising. The main goal of advertising has always been to make us feel sad and pathetic unless we got this particular product that would make our lives better. And tailoring the ads to fit the person, that hasn't really changed either. I'm sure it's no coincidence that once I hit a certain age, AARP flyers started showing up on my mailbox. We have lived with advertisements and people making money off our behaviors for some time now, for decades. But what has changed is the insatiable hunger for data that these models have, and how these models are getting it, working non-stop through our phones, our tablets, our browsers, on devices that we can't just simply shut off, devices that we use to stay connected to people we love. These algorithms need to keep us responding and reacting as it gathers more and more data about us. And this need to collect our data and keeping us glued to our screens to create these models is literally killing our youth. Now, I'm not just talking about making them and us into dopamine drones. I seriously mean ending their lives, and our only hope, and theirs, is to fulfill our greatest obligation. Up until 2010, 2011, hospitalizations for preteens and teenage women hurting themselves was actually pretty stable up until 2010, 2011. After 2011, we start to see an increase of older teens. That rate goes up by 62%, and for preteens, the rate goes up by 189%. And please remember that for each one of these young girls, we have a family in trauma wondering how could this actually have happened to their little girl. There's a culture where two people will connect only through a third party. And that third party is not interested in their well-being, but how to monetize them. The third party is using the powers of psychology and math to keep them glued to their screens, and it has now created a generation that is more anxious, more depressed, and more fragile. And simply put, it's not their fault, and it's not the parents' fault. We are not fighting against human enemies, but against algorithms. And even the people who unleash the algorithms have no idea where the algorithms would go. And the pain in their voice in that documentary could be felt through the screen. Now, while I focused on youth, we are all impacted by this. These algorithms are created to ensnare and trap our attention as they try to create ever more perfect models of us so they can sell us more stuff that we likely don't need. These algorithms are keeping us anxious and afraid. They're keeping us isolated and polarized from each other, draining our sanity and humanity, like by like, click by click. So what can we do? Well, I urge you to pay attention to the end of the film, The Social Dilemma, and obviously there are some simple things you can do. For example, I turned off most of the notifications in my phone. But there'll need to be some really big changes attempted to really address this, and frankly, we just don't seem to be particularly good at big changes. So what does any of this have to do with do no harm? Friends, social media is not going away anytime soon, and so it helps to understand a key fact. The algorithms want to keep your data, keep your attention, keep you coming back for more. They want more and more of your life. They want more and more of your data. And the way to keep us coming back is to keep us anxious, to keep us angry, keep us fearful, keep us reacting. Someone lashes at us, we lash at them. Someone says something we don't like, we rush to be the first to correct and condemn. They then rush back at us, and the arms race of rage continues unabated while the algorithm continues to collect our data and perfect the models of us so they can assail us with more and more products. We get sicker and sicker, and everyone loses but the platforms. So sadly, I'm not so sure we can give up on social media. So where is the hope? Where is the gospel? So at times like this, I tend to lean on 1 John 4:18. Perfect love casts out fear. Where's the gospel? Well, we lean into our obligation to love, and part of that obligation to love is to do no harm, to not hold grudges or take revenge against anyone. And there's some beautiful fruit that can come from this. When we agree we will not harm those people, even the people we disagree with, new conversations are possible, new dialogue possibilities open up, new insights can appear. And when the algorithms prompt us with messages and posts it knows are going to provoke fear, anger, and response, what would happen if we responded with grace and love? When the algorithms demand our attention, what if we gave them our attention and responded out of the gospel of grace? What would happen to our models then? When doing no harm, we can no longer spend our energies attacking the other, looking for ways to win. We might actually start to see things in a new light. We might actually start to see the other also as a child of God, and we may even start to see things in new ways. We may never agree, probably will never agree, but our hearts will be aligned with Jesus, and that is a strong antidote to the era that we're in. So do no harm. Don't add to the anxieties and toxicities on the web. There are plenty of people who will do that for you. Lean into the discomfort. Learn what is driving that point of view. And if it really is just hopeless, unplug. Guard your heart. Your mind is not a junkyard. Don't let people just dump their garbage into it. I encourage you, urge you, implore you, especially during the season, to use your social media platform as a voice of God's love and build better models. Send that love that is in your heart virally into the web. Use that platform as an opportunity to live into the community we aspire to be here at Advent, so that we can bind our hearts to this great mission of the church and transform the world. And if you have any youth, please be aware of the battle for attention that surrounds them. And actually, as my second bonus material, I'm just going to say, because it just occurs to me as I'm looking at so many wonderful grandparents, so many wonderful uncles, aunts. We're about to hit the season of Thanksgiving, Christmas. You're about to see some of your youth that maybe you haven't seen in months, maybe years, and they're going to be sitting on that couch. You're going to be sitting on a chair. They're going to be on their phone, and you're going to be irritated, right? You're going to be irritated. You're going to be thinking, why? I see you like once every 3 months. Why are you on your expletive phone? I can see that coming out. And I just have to say, you have to remember that this is not parenting from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or 2000s. You have to remember the algorithms are vying for that youth's attention. And you, it's not fair, but you have to be better than the algorithms. That's my advice to you right now. You have to be better than the algorithms. The youth ministry, I do youth ministry so that they actually have, I can offer them something that's at least an alternative to this, to what they're getting out there. The reason I have my coffee time ministry on Wednesday afternoons is to listen, really listen to them, so that as much as I can help them see how loved they are by the church, by God, and by myself. And the reason that I have Sunday afternoon ministry with the youth is to engage them in meaningful conversations to help them along their journey so that they can realize their potentials as beloved children of God. And I do this out of obligation, but believe me, it's not for a paycheck, no offense to SPR, but from the love given to me by my youth leaders in the past and out of response for the love that God gives me now. Loving is my greatest obligation. That is how I fulfill the law. And please understand, I'm not advocating that we miss our opportunities and obligations to do justice, even on social media. Sometimes, even with those algorithms out there poking and prodding us, we do need to respond, and we should respond. I am saying to guard your heart. And remember, our obligation is to do justice and love mercy. Take a breath and really analyze, where is your response coming from? A heart of war or a heart of peace? And we can, by doing no harm, click by click, like by like, build better models to build up the kingdom of God.